So thank you for your time and sharing about effective interviewing skills.
Thank you, Mani.
Sir, interviewing is one of the most important aspects, and more importantly, the entire recruitment as a function. According to you, sir, what is important when it comes to selection of a candidate?
Right. You said it right, Mani. I always tell my team, wherever I am able to speak, recruitment is the most important activity an organization has had. This decides the future of your business. And moreover, selection is important because we all believe and we always preach manpower is the most important asset of an organization. If manpower is the most important asset of an organization, what prevents you to believe that recruitment is the most important function? Because that is a function decides who has to come to you as your manpower.
Right.
So I believe, and I always practice also, recruitment is the most important function an organization has got. And personally for me, recruitment is very close to my heart.
Right. Rightly said, it's the most important function because the kind of people who come into an organization
Absolutely.
decides how the organization is going to grow in the future.
Right.
So the first step of recruitment is screening the CV.
Right.
So most of them go wrong here.
Right.
What is your expertise and what are your thoughts in terms of what are certain things that we need to look into a CV?
Right. It is very important to review the CV at the right way, and this saves the time of both the company and also of the candidate. If you are able to see the CV properly and review it rightly, you can go for conducting an interview, or you can avoid conducting an interview.
Right.
So it is a decision-making process of selecting the right candidate at the beginning.
Right.
Now, in a CV, when you are looking at, you should definitely see the demographic details of the candidate. Right. Along with that, the stability of the candidate, how stable he or she is, and also see the past achievement of the candidate, the educational and experience details of the candidate.
Right.
These are certain things comes to your mind, and then you value that, align that with your requirement in the company, and then you decide this candidate is to be called for a meeting or to be conducted for an interview or not. And that spending time will definitely save the time for your company and also for the candidate's time.
Right, sir. Wonderful, sir. So thank you, sir. You mentioned very rightly in terms of what are some of the aspects that we need to look into a CV before we call the candidate for an interview.
Right.
Sir, before the candidate comes, there are certain things which even the interviewer needs to prepare.
Right.
What are your thoughts on what are some of the things which an interviewer needs to keep in mind before the candidate comes in for the interview?
See, when we are recruiting for middle level and senior level roles, especially, you should definitely review the job description of the candidate. Understand that what are your expectations actually.
Right.
And you also should calibrate your thought process with other interviewers.
Okay.
Because if there are 2 different panels or 3 different panels of interviewers and your expectations are not common, you just imagine how the candidate will get selected. You may end up in selecting a wrong candidate, or you may end up in not selecting a good candidate.
Right.
So calibration of the thought process in terms of expectation of the candidate, and then reviewing the JD, and then technically you structure the interview questions. What are the questions you need to answer and get clarity from the candidate?
Right.
When you structure these interviews in a very systematic manner, you will be able to prepare well for the candidates, meeting the candidate.
Right.
And that is a work process, and every interviewer should definitely do that when you are definitely recruiting for a middle level or a senior level role.
Right.
Other positions, there are set practices. So junior level role, many reviews happening with the HR, functional heads and all. So there these things can be easily ensured.
Wonderful, sir. So it's definitely important that we are prepared in advance before the candidate comes in for the interview.
Right.
Sir, first step is through in terms of screening the CV. Second is as an interviewer we are ready in terms of welcoming the candidate and making sure that our thoughts are aligned with the other interviewers.
Right.
Now the third step is when the candidate comes in for the interview. Okay, when the candidate comes in for the interview, he or she comes in with a lot of aspirations, thinking that I need this job.
Right.
Okay, and once they step in, many of them are nervous.
Yeah.
So how do we break the ice to ensure that we get the best out of the candidate while he or she is present?
Very good question, Mani. See, I always believe that the candidate should be kept at ease.
Right.
And that is at your interest.
Right.
You just imagine a candidate who is nervous, a candidate who is tense, will not be able to show his or her full potential. And what is the purpose of your meeting him or her? To understand in deep the talent of that individual, right? So it is our responsibility and ensure that the candidate is kept relaxed, at ease. So normally what I do, I greet the candidate with a smile, I introduce myself, and I also talk about little light things happening around. I also ask them, how did you reach, where do you stay? Very simple question, where the candidate is very easy and comfortable to answer those questions. And we keep the candidate relaxed, talk about simple, easy questions initially to keep on probing on, then come to the technical question, behavioral aspects, talk about past experience later. But you structure in such a way that the candidate is fully relaxed and at ease to answer all your questions.
Right. Wonderful, sir. So the key is breaking the ice and making sure that we get the best out of the candidate.
Right.
Sir, another aspect is that the moment a candidate reaches, we break the ice and we try to get comfortable. While we do that, either we look at the candidate and our biasness immediately comes up. Second is, while we are talking, we look at how the communication skills are, and depending on that, sometimes we might get carried away. Sometimes we immediately make an impression about the candidate looking at the grooming, whether the candidate is fit or not.
Right.
Okay. So how do we get over our biasness
Right.
and ensure that we get to know the candidate well?
Right. Again, a very important question, Mani. See, what I have seen, there are 3-4 major mistakes an interviewer commits while selecting a candidate, and that prevents to get a good candidate to the organization. And we land up in selecting either a wrong candidate or land up in losing a good candidate.
Right.
And I divide these mistakes into 4 categories. The first one is, you rightly said, our biasness. Right. When we are meeting a candidate, automatically we are also human being, the biasness come across and it is pop up like computer. The second one is, biasness can be of anything, about the language or the state they belong to, about the color, religion, creed, anything. It can be of anything, any biasness which is already there in your mind. The second and most important is overemphasizing on the first impression.
Right.
Now a well-groomed lady comes to your office for interview, and with a lot of good communication you get carried away. So this is overemphasizing on the first impression. Then we genuinely forget to get a deep dive into the candidate's talent.
Okay.
And we make a decision our own, no, this candidate is good.
Right.
The third one is halo effect.
Right.
Halo effect is, you get carried away by some very positive things happening in the CV or with the candidate.
Okay.
For instance, the candidate is from an IEM, or a candidate is from XLRI.
Right.
So by seeing that this candidate is from a very premier institute, you get carried away by that comment itself. And then you don't get the details of the candidate, because the decision is already made in the back of your mind.
Right.
And the fourth one is very important, which is about, we are pre-decided what to be done. We want the candidate to behave like the way you want them to behave.
Right.
So it is not that every candidate may not behave, or the candidate may not be like you, the way you want them to be.
Right.
So they have their own individual choices.
Right.
So you must understand that what is good for the organization and what is good for the role to happen.
Right.
And that is where you get the right candidate.
Right.
And when you know these are the 4 mistakes that you may commit, and then if you are aware about this, you may not get into that trap. But when you are talking to other people, when you are training some managers about interviewing skill, you should definitely train them about these mistakes.
Right.
and also make them to understand how is it going to impact the organization by the biasness, by the overemphasizing on the first impression or the halo effect that is there in place. We should make them to understand what is the bad impact that has got on the organizational functioning.
Wonderful, sir. Wonderful. So one thing which you mentioned is that one of the points you said that the person should be, be ready to work in the organization, should be a right organizational fit. And when people come from various different organizations, the cultures are very different across each of the organization. How do we ensure that the candidate is a right fit, cultural fit for our organization?
Right. Yeah, Mani, there is no 100% false-free review happening in anywhere.
Right.
It's all our personal review, understanding the candidate little deeper. From my experience, what I understood is that you, first of all, you make a structured approach to the interview. You make your relevant questions beforehand so that you don't miss any relevant question to ask the candidate. The second one is that you ask behavior related questions to probing the behavior of the candidate, which can be captured from the past incident from their career, talking about their interest, something happened in their career, how they have resolved those issues, and also asking about the value based question. You can probe value based question indirectly, asking about how do you think about certain value systems, and then what did you do when you had any time encountered such issues in your career. And you probe, and again when they give an answer, you again probe them, deeply you probe them. Then you realize that what kind of a nature the candidate is having. And this really helps us to understand the real man behind that CV. So, and then you can decide whether this gentleman is able to adapt to our culture, able to adjust in a team that we have in our place, or are they going to live with the cultural system that our organization is having or not. And that fit is very important. But many a times it is also important to bring in good fit to the organization. Our culture also need to get changed. So it is very important to bring in people who are with very, very different thought process also. It's need to come to our organization. So we also need to understand that how adaptive and how progressive they are thinking about those ideas, and then bring into our organization and make them to succeed in this organization. This is also responsibility of us as a recruiter.
Wonderful, sir. Sir, as we conduct the interview, there are times that the candidate gets defensive in his or her approach. Now, when such situation occurs, how do we diffuse that situation and get the situation back to normal? Because there are times when a person might not like the question, or we might not like what they say. So sometimes interviewers start sharing their ideas and what they think is right. So how do we stop such thing from happening? And if the candidate gets defensive, how do we diffuse that situation?
See, it is very important for an interviewer to remain always calm and composed, and that is the identity of a good recruiter. You have no right, you are not expected to become aggressive. So the candidate, even if he or she becomes a little defensive or aggressive, you need to remain very calm and composed. You keep on probing him, understand deep and deep about the candidate. And I have seen many, it is not very common. It's very rare that a candidate gets very aggressive. And it is your responsibility to make them calm and composed and offer them assurances that this entire purpose of this interaction is for a job selection only, and we are trying to understand your talent that you already have in your place. So that one-on-one friendly interaction will definitely keep them calm. And then you watch whenever there is an aggressive behavior from the candidate, watch on the non-verbal communication of the candidate. And then you can realize how behaviorally this candidate is matured to handle the situation in the role that you are going to offer. And many a times the interviewer have to keep his control, his cool. That is very prime importance. And very reassuring words, very friendly approach. These things can definitely keep the candidates very warm and cool.
That is right, sir. Wonderful, sir. Sir, I also wanted to know what are your thoughts when we are selecting somebody at a leadership role,
Right.
somebody at a mid leadership role, and somebody who is at a team level, team players. So, what are some of the key qualities and behaviors we look for in these three sets of people?
Yeah, very, very relevant question, Mani, because I've been very lucky and fortunate to recruit many senior positions in the current company and also in my previous assignments.
Right.
Recruiting a very high leadership roles is a different ball game altogether, because there the expectations are entirely different.
Right.
Middle level leadership role, the expectations are little different, and then the junior level roles, our approach should be different, because at the all three layers of recruitments, our expectation and their expectation both differs.
Right.
So when we recruit senior profiles of CXOs or CEOs role, most importantly what we watch for is the strategic behavior of a candidate, the strategic thinking of a candidate, and the vision of a candidate, and the capability of a candidate to inspire a team and drive a business. These are certain big things we look from a candidate who is driving for a leadership role.
Right.
And then for the middle level role, the managerial capability, supervisory skills, the potential to grow to the next level, the stability and the capability to learn new things. These are certain things we look at the middle level. When we come to the third executive level, when we look at for the candidate, the ability to work in a team, whether they have got the capability to learn new things when they are taking up the responsibility, and also to understand the managerial directions, and what is the potential of that candidate to come to the next level, and the passion for execution in that candidate, because these roles are execution roles.
Right.
Whether the candidate has got the passion to execute the order of a manager who is given.
Right.
So these are broadly certain things we look at the candidate.
Right.
But irrespective of the level of the candidate,
Right.
Mani, believe me, every junior or senior profile, every candidate who comes for interview, every candidate you are selecting at any level, it's a very, very sensitive and important activity for the organization.
Right. Absolutely, sir. Wonderful insight, sir. Sir, what also happens is there are times that as an interviewers try to show their knowledge and show off their skills. So, how do we ensure that we don't get into that mode when it comes to interviewing a candidate? What also happens, I have seen that people particularly look for certain answers, and if that answer is not given, they keep making the candidate feel that they do not know nothing.
Right.
So, how do you think that we should? What are some things which the interviewer needs to keep in mind? Though that answer is very important, it's critical.
Right.
But at the same time, ensuring that we do not make put the candidate at a very different position.
Many times it happens because the interviewer himself is in an insecure situation. When they see the candidate is well educated, he is from a premier institute, and he is well learned candidate comes in, they try to find out very difficult question for answering.
Right.
And I have seen many situations where people are asking about the article and section number to a senior candidates.
Okay.
So these are all aberrations from the normal practice, because one should understand the purpose of interview is not to prove that the candidate who is coming for a job is wrong.
Right.
The entire purpose of an interview is to select the right candidate for your organization.
Right.
For that, you have to make the candidate again at ease and relaxed.
Right.
So there is no point in asking most difficult question to prove the candidate is wrong or right. It is most important that you keep them relaxed, ask a relevant question for the role.
Right.
It is not difficult or it is not easy question. A relevant question to probe the skill, behavior and attitude of the candidate.
Right. Wonderful, sir. Sir, while this entire interviewing is going on, the candidate definitely gets to experience the organization and the culture also. So, what do you think should be while the closing of the interview is happening? How do you think the interview should be closed? should the candidate be also told that whether the candidate is selected or not, or how do we leave the interview, while we are concluding?
Right. See, basically when the interview process is about to complete, you should definitely give them a brief about how it all went and about the next process of the selection. And then we should not give a unexpected hope to the candidate, because you are going to meet many candidates for the same role.
Right.
So you should definitely tell this is what your process, and if you are selected, you will get informed by the HR department. Or if you are not selected, so you will get an intimation that you are not selected for the role from our team. And if there is any further process of meeting a senior person or undergoing a personality test or anything, that will happen like that.
Right.
And you have to very nicely summarize all these things together to the candidate, and you should very friendly way you should conclude the interview, and we should definitely wish the candidate all the very best for his all the assignment. And also when he goes, you just imagine and understand that he is going to be one of your brand ambassador when he is going out.
Wonderful.
And even he is getting selected, he should keep his dream and wish to work anytime in this brand. That is what the impression he should carry when he goes from here.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
So that message and experience you should give to the candidate.
Right, sir. I just loved what you said, sir, that people should continue to aspire to come and join, even if they have not been selected.
Absolutely.
So that's really wonderful. So what has also happened is that, especially after COVID, while the interviews are conducted, many of them have actually gone to virtual mode.
Right.
That we are connecting to candidate either via Zoom or Microsoft, and there are different other social media through which the interviews are done. What are some of the things which the interviewer needs to keep in mind while conducting interviews virtually?
Right. Now this has become very common, Mani. Digital platforms are widely used for screening the candidate. It saves a lot of time. It definitely saves a lot of travel. Having said that, one should be very careful while using this platform to take a final decision about the candidate. I always suggest for senior level roles, at least one personal interview should happen. That is very, very important. Right. But again, for middle level or junior level role, if you are not able to meet the candidate, you should ensure that you have an effective digital platform interaction. When I am talking about effective interaction, you should be able to ask all relevant questions required. You should be able to review with proper time, investing in proper time, understand in detail and in deep about the candidate's background, the behavioral aspects and the skill of the candidate.
Right.
And now there are a lot of online tests that we can do, assessment tools we can use to ensure that these candidates are used. While you are using a particular technology, ensure that you have no disruption. The candidate is comfortable to talk to you over the platform, and your net is absolutely in order, so that the candidate is able to share whatever he or she wants over the platform. Right. So these are certain things one should be careful about. But for any critical role or any managerial role, when you talk about, at least one personal interaction is very, very important.
Right. Wonderful, sir. Great, sir. So it's very important that virtually also we are completely prepared and ensure that the candidate gets a wonderful experience. Sir, out of the last few questions, one question I had is that according to you, what are this couple of unique questions that an interviewer can include in his or her interview?
Yeah. See, one common question always comes to my mind is that every interviewer is asking a candidate, you talk about yourself.
Right.
When they explain about themselves, you probe in detail about each thing that they are talking about. That is very important, because it is very important to know about themselves. Yeah. And many candidates miss talking about their family or talking about their future plans and about their achievement in academics. So probe about this in detail. Right. And don't miss anybody to ask a question about their past experience, past achievements, and also any failure that they had in their life, and how they were able to overcome that failure.
Wonderful.
It is very important to know that how they are able to sustain failures, how they are able to deal with failure situation in their life, and then critical moment, are they able to bounce back properly is very important for all the roles that we are recruiting.
Right, sir.
So these are some of the questions normally a recruiter don't ask, but it's very important to ask.
Right, sir. Wonderful. So thank you so much. It was wonderful interacting with you and getting such great insights.
Thank you, Mani.
I'm sure our interviewers will definitely ensure right candidates are selected, and we'll build a great team.
Thank you, Mani. And once again, I just wanted to tell all the viewers of this video, SHALBY as an organization is a people-centric organization. And it is very, very important that we have right people and right behavior and with right attitude on board in our organization. So therefore, it is very important that the selection and recruitment of the candidate happens with all sincerity and with all criticality that we can apply on each and every recruitment that happens in our organization. And I am sure the session that Mani is going to deliver for ensuring the effective interviewing and effective selection of the candidate will be useful for you to take the right candidate for the future growth of this organization. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.